So this is going to be a standing lesson. So most of it is going to be in standing. There will be some rests, and you feel free to either sit down, go for a walk, lie on the floor, any combination of any of those things. Just do whatever you feel you need to do in order to rest, because standing lessons can be a little bit challenging. They take quite a lot of focus, a lot of awareness. You may well, there may be a little bit as well that you might like to have a wall or a desk or a back of a chair or a table or something, or a windowsill or anything. It's not to lean on, but it just might help you. The important thing is that you don't feel like you're wobbly, and that you're going to fall over. So it's not something to hang on to, but it just is something that you might feel you need to steady yourself at one point, but you might then feel that you don't need it. So it's not really important, but just if you need it, go somewhere where you've got a little bit of support. Okay, well, I shall start. So I thought this would be a nice lesson. It's actually a Feldenkrais lesson. It's part of, anyway, a lesson which Feldenkrais calls Introduction to Walking. So it's to do with weight shifting and coordinating the breath. And I think as musicians, either whether we're a singer or we're playing instruments, or even if you're sitting, the sense of being able to have your head free over your base of support and your breathing free is very important. So I'm hoping that this lesson will give you an idea of how Feldenkrais can help you to find some of that. So I think I've covered all of that. I think a couple of people have just joined in. If you've just joined, just make sure you've got something that you might be able to, might need for a little bit of support occasionally, just a back of a chair. And when I say rest wherever you like, sitting, standing, walking around, lying on the floor, whatever you like. So bring yourself to standing. And take a moment to just notice yourself. And notice what you notice, what comes into your sensing, your feeling. Does it feel easy to be here on your feet? I've been struggling with some plantar fasciitis, so my one foot has not been feeling brilliant, so there's been a bit of discomfort. But actually, that's changed quite a bit since I've been playing around with this lesson, which has been very interesting for me. And sense your breathing. And can you sense where on your feet you're being supported? How your weight is distributed between your 2 feet, which means it may be on a little more on one foot or a little more on the other foot. It may be more to the front, it may be more to the back, it may be towards the instep, towards the outer sides, outer edges of your feet. It could be any combination of any of those. Just get a bit of a picture of how you're distributing your weight. And every time we come back to a rest, you might like to consider whether anything has changed when we come back to this. And bring your feet so that they're absolutely parallel, and have your arms just easily by your sides. Have them a comfortable distance apart. And very simply, shift your weight a little to your right foot, and then come back through the middle and over to your left foot. And keep repeating that. And notice how your back is moving in space, how your head is moving in space. And pay attention to your breathing. Are you coordinating in any way with this movement? And we're going to coordinate the breath very specifically in this lesson, right the way through the lesson. So what I'd like you to do is when you're over one of your feet, that's where you're going to have the inhalation. And then as you travel across to the other foot, you're going to exhale. And then as the weight comes into the other foot, that's your moment to inhale. And then as you travel across to the other foot, you exhale. And see how that is. Sense how fast. So whether that movement has had to be slowed down in order to coordinate that in the first place, perhaps. And if at some point you want to, you could play around with adding in a gentle fricative, something like a gentle, make it very gentle, so a little, or a gentle, or a little, or even some sort of little hum. Just be interested, and you could change that because we're going to be doing this breathing right the way through the lesson for the next 20 minutes or so. So be curious as to what it's like. Don't have too much of a barrier, so you have to push the air through. It's just a way of just sensing the breath and feeling it in your mouth and the connection, and also to sense the ease of it. Okay, and just take a moment and rest. This is a very teeny rest, so stay on your feet at the moment. And then carry on with the movement and notice how your head is moving in space. And I think everybody that I see is their whole backs are moving, shoulders are moving in space. How might it be to keep your, not keep, but have your head floating above your center in the space? So your head no longer shifts in space, but the whole of the rest of you shifts from one foot to the other. And with this breathing pattern, so as you travel, the breath, you exhale, the breath comes out, and when you're over your foot, that you inhale, so you might take a moment there. Sense where on that foot the weight has gone. Has it gone all the way to the outside? Is it on the front? Is it on the heel? Lovely. And now just take a proper rest. Either sit down, lie down, take a little walk, and see how that feels. And these will be little short rests, so don't get too comfortable if you've decided to lie on the floor. And in your own time, come back to standing, or not, if you would prefer. This is Feldenkrais after all. You can do whatever you like. So this time, bring your feet in the same position, but now take your right foot and cross it over to the left side of your left foot. So it'll be a little tiny bit in front, but probably the heel will be sort of in line with maybe the base of your little toe, somewhere over to the left of your little toes, just wherever is comfortable, wherever is easy. And immediately you'll notice that this is a little more challenging as far as balance goes. So just being in that place, have a sense of what this is, how this has challenged your breathing. And is it possible to be breathing just as easily? And now you're going to do the same thing and shift your weight a little to your right foot and then a little to your back. And you can let your head and everything do whatever it likes. Don't worry, you can let everything move and see if you can coordinate that breath. So the breath is coming out as you travel, and then you breathe in when you're over the foot, and then your breath comes out again as you travel to the other foot. And does it help to pay attention more to your toes or more to your heels? Is it easier focusing on your heels? Do you feel more balanced? And then is it possible to allow your head to stay in the middle? How does this change the movement? What's the difference in the movement in your hip joints, in your ribs, in your neck? And if you're not sure, come back to the one where you let everything come. So you're sort of not quite, but nearly moving like a stick. So we would call that relatively, it's not completely, but there's a certain undifferentiated movement. And then by leaving the head in the middle, something else has to be able to move in order to allow you to balance here. And then leave that, bring your legs parallel and just very simply come back to, don't worry too much about coordinating the breathing, just see what it's like to very simply shift your weight left and right. And also maybe see what it's like to shift your weight left and right with your head in the middle. You may notice something different in one side to the other because we've done something in a very slight twist, really, with having something slightly off center. Maybe will have affected one side more than the other. Just see if that's a thing. It might not be a thing. No is a perfectly acceptable answer. Lovely. Actually, let's carry on and let's do the other way around. So this time, take your left foot over to the right of your right foot. Now this may be different from the other side. This may be easier this side. It may be more of a challenge. And so focus on the ease in your breathing. And then when you feel as though you can, begin to shift the weight a little to the right and a little to the left foot. And see if it's possible to coordinate the breathing as we have done. So the breath, you have an exhalation as you go onto one foot, and then you inhale when you're on the foot, over the foot, and then you exhale as you transfer the weight to the other foot. And then inhale. And if you want to add a little fricative, feel free. And notice how your back's moving in space. There may be a little turning as you're already a little bit. See if there is a little turning. Notice the difference between your two hip joints, perhaps. That could be a thing. And then what's it like to keep your head in the middle? Are you able to coordinate the breathing here? Notice where it becomes a little more challenging. Is there something you can let go of that enables you to breathe easily and freely? Lovely. And take a rest. So take a moment, walk, sit, lie down. Sense your breathing maybe If you're walking around, it might be there might be something interesting already developing in your walking. But use this as a moment to rest your attention. Don't think about it too deeply. Just notice what you notice. And in your own time, come back to standing with your feet parallel. But you may need to hold on to something for this next one. I know some of you are being very sensible and holding on to something. And again, come back to this very simple moving of shifting your weight from your right foot to your left foot and coordinating the breathing. Once you've set it up, what would it be like that as your weight goes into your right foot, that you pour the weight somewhere into the heel and you lift the whole of the front of your foot, so the toes and the front of your foot from the floor. And then you place the front of your foot back onto the floor, shift the weight to your left foot. Have a sense of maybe leaning a little into the heel and lifting the front of your foot. And then replacing it. So you don't lift the whole foot, you keep the heel on the floor and you just lift the front of your foot. If it's a challenge, just de-weight the front of your foot. See if it's possible just to de-weight. And maybe have a sense of what might be possible in the hip joint on that side. How does your pelvis move? Is there something that might help to make this movement a little bit easier? Let your head do whatever it wants to. Let your pelvis move wherever it wants to. Let your back travel in space however it wants to. Don't stop anything. Let your knees do whatever they want to. Just keep this shifting the weight. Observe your neck, your back, your ribs. And then what would it be like now to quieten your head so that it can float in the middle? And you can take a rest at any moment. You can drop out of the lesson if you feel like it's a challenge. You can stop and then just come back to it. But I'm going to keep you going now just for a little bit longer. But do stop as necessary. So you feel like you lean onto the left heel and lift the toes. And that will be where your in-breath is, and then the out-breath as you transfer the weight across and lean on the heel. Is there a sense that your hip joint maybe likes to go backwards a little? Is that a thing? Or your pelvis might want to turn. Does that help? Lovely. Take a moment and rest. And now come back to standing, just simply with both legs, the weight on both feet. And start the simple, just moving left and right. Coordinating your breathing as you go. And now begin to turn that into a sort of a half circle so that your pelvis sort of moves in a little bit of an arc backwards and then comes round to the other foot. So you're doing a little half circle. So as you transfer the weight, you do a little circle backwards. And then you come again through the same pathway, take the route a little bit backwards and onto the other foot and coordinate your breathing. And you can play with head in the middle, head moving with the movement. And then let's go straight into taking an arc to the front. Okay, I have just noticed that we've only got, actually that's right, we've got 9 minutes left on the clock. So take the circle in an arc forwards and play with your head being in the middle, play with it moving. Notice the difference between these two ways of doing it, how the ribs change shape, how your head can balance, how your neck maybe is adjusting to the movement underneath your head. And then what would it be like to turn this into a full circle? And you can do that with your whole back, whole head moving. And change direction. Let your head be in the middle, play around with your head being in the middle. Now your head may tilt a little bit. You could have a certain amount of tilting, but have it in the middle. Is there a possibility of keeping the center of you, so your forehead and your nose and your chin lined up really at right angles to the floor? Is that a different thing? Lovely. And just take a moment to rest. I'm going to do one other little variation before we finish. Just take a little moment. Come back to transferring the weight from one foot to the other very simply, and see if it's possible to do the lifting of the toes now. See if that's improved. See if that's changed, if it's easier to lift a toe, lift the whole of the front of your foot, de-weight the front of your foot as you transfer your weight onto that foot. And you decide where you want your head. And now land on one of those heels and stay there. You choose. And is it possible to make a little circle just around that heel with the front of your foot lifted? And you have the options, of course, of your head moving in space or your head not moving in space. Noticing what's possible within your ribs, whether your ribs are sliding maybe. If your arms are really beautifully relaxed, can you get a sense that your ribs are sliding underneath your shoulder blades? And then come back to the middle. And then see what it's like on the other side. So take the weight on this, may be either easier or more challenging. If I think you chose that which way you went, so this may well be your slightly more challenging side. See what it's like. We normally choose the easier way even if it's something weird like this that we've never done before. And change the direction. You can let your head you be curious as to letting your head join in, not letting your head join in. Great. And then before you take a rest, just very simply now, just shift your weight from left to right. Take it a few times and try lifting the toes. See if that variation has made it easier to lift your toes. Is there something now that's a bit more possible within your hip joint? Do you get a sense of where your hip joint is? It's quite a challenge to really sense where that hip joint is. Does that give you a bit more of a sense where your hip joint is? And then go for a walk. As everybody go for a walk and see whether you notice something in your walking, how your head is being carried. Can you notice whether your head can be quiet in that space as you walk and your weight transfers from one foot to the other? And whether you get a sense of this movement within your whole rib cage, through your back, through your spine. Lovely. So I hope that you found that useful. We've actually got 3 minutes left on the clock. If anybody would like to share anything or ask a question or anything, please feel free to unmute yourself. I'd be very interested to see what effect that maybe had. Yes, Karolka.
Hi, I have muscular dystrophy, and so the beginning was not that easy because it's worse in my feet, but I did it. I thought I tried it lying down, and it's still very useful because I'm still doing the transfers, and the feet are my most immobile part. So I still found this very useful. My feet felt more flexible toward the end.
Fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. That's the way to do Feldenkrais, is to adapt, to what you're able to do, and that's wonderful that it still had an effect. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
Really nice sensation in the hip joints from walking. So at the end, the feeling of being a much more complex structure. Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Maggie.
Yes, and I'll second that. I was so much more aware of my chest and my spine moving as I walked afterwards.
And I thought that was quite a nice lesson, certainly for us as well. I'm a singer, Bertie's a singer, Maggie's a singer. So that sense that, I mean, when we're and any sort of anyone who's on stage, that being able to move and breathe and the head being able to balance, but also having a sense that as maybe an instrumentalist, that if you're holding an instrument and you're moving and you're standing to play something, that maybe that might feed in to your balance and the way that the ease in the use of your breath. Even for string players, of course, because it's important that string players still use their breath as they sing. Well, so lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that you'll join some of the lessons over the next few days. Yu Meng, who's here, is teaching the lesson tomorrow. Maggie is on Saturday. Brilliant. So look forward to seeing you all, and thank you very much for coming.